If you've ever felt like your voice was ignored, your efforts unseen, or your worth mocked, this story is for you. I've always believed voices had shape. Some like thunder bursting into rooms with stormy confidence. Others, like mine, flowed quieter. A stream running under frozen glass. Steady. Intentional. Easy to overlook if you weren't listening. I sit in the fourth chair from the end of the conference table, back straight, hands folded neatly in my lap. The room is slick with glass and steel. A pale morning light filters through the floor-to-ceiling windows, making the air inside feel like it belongs to someone richer, faster, louder. All right, pitch review, 5 minutes per team, Jihan says, tapping his phone like time itself obeys his fingers. He doesn't look up. He never does. Across the table, people lean in. Shoulders squared, voices sharp, filled with urgency. Ideas are launched like grenades. Competitive, relentless. I admire their ability to demand space. I envy it even. But I don't know how to yell to be heard. That's not my way. Never was. When it's our team's turn, Soman jumps in first, fast talking through our concept. I wait for my cue. I have a small suggestion. An adjustment to the assistant's emotional cadence. Just a few lines I spent 2 nights fine-tuning. It could make the AI feel more human. I think, I begin gently. Jiwon raises a hand without looking at me. Yeah, we'll circle back. My mouth stays open for a second too long before I press it into a line. The moment's gone. I nod. I smile like it's fine. It's fine. It always is. Except it isn't. Not really. The meeting ends, chairs scrape, laptops snap shut. Ji-hwan walks past me without a glance, his suit jacket sharp at the shoulders, the scent of clean cologne trailing behind him. He always smells expensive, like time costs more when you're near him. In the hallway, I pull out my phone. My thumb hovers over the voice note button. There's a small, shivering pulse in my throat. Do I say something? Do I just let it go again? I tap record. Hi, just wanted to say I think the humanization layer on the assistant could benefit from gentler inflection shifts. The emotional map feels sharp in version 3, especially when prompting user errors. I worked on a softer approach if you'd like to hear it. Also, sometimes it's okay to pause. When someone's trying to be heard, I stare at the waveform pulsing blue across the screen. Then I send it. I don't expect a reply. I rarely get one. That Friday night, the company throws a dinner at a sleek downtown bistro, a post-milestone celebration. Glass walls, moody lighting, everyone dressed like success was mandatory. My hair is tied back neatly, my blouse tucked in with precision. I sit near the end of the long table, away from the louder clusters. Jiwon is near the center, flanked by the team leads. He's wearing charcoal gray, the kind of shade that makes him look more like a headline than a person. He talks with that half-laughing arrogance, wine glass loose between 2 fingers, like the world is slightly too boring for him. At some point, I notice him scrolling through his phone. I recognize the voice note player interface. He raises his hand like a toast. Okay, listen to this. It's gold. My breath catches. He taps play. My voice fills the room. Hi, just wanted to say I think the humanization layer... Laughter cracks through the table before I can process it. Someone claps. Another mimics my tone. Also, sometimes it's okay to pause. Julan smirks. Tell me that's not the saddest GPS you've ever heard. I stare down at my lap. My hands are perfectly still. I watch a droplet of condensation slide down my water glass. It gathers at the base, pools, dissolves into the tablecloth. She sounds like one of those meditation apps, Soman giggles. Like, you are not the problem, traffic is the problem. Jiwon snorts. Right, internal AI at its most depressed. They laugh, all of them, laugh and laugh and laugh. No one looks at me. That's the worst part. No one has to. I lift my glass slowly, my lips touch the rim, but I don't drink. My eyes stay on the flicker of a pendant lamp above, swaying just slightly from the hum of the air conditioner. I'm not humiliated, not outwardly, not visibly. I don't storm out, I don't cry, I just sit. Something inside me folds, quietly, like paper under rain. And in that silence, something else sharpens. I will never beg to be heard again. Later, in the taxi home, I don't speak a word. The city lights streak past in smudges of gold and violet. I pull my phone from my bag, scroll to the sent voice note, and hit play one last time. Sometimes it's okay to pause when someone's trying to be heard. My voice sounds softer than I remember. Clearer. More vulnerable. Not weak, just open. And I wonder, did he hear me at all? I delete it. The car stops at a red light. A couple walks by on the sidewalk, laughing. The girl nudges the boy's shoulder and he pulls her closer. I look away. Inside me, something quiet and old begins to shift. Not rage, not revenge, just release? I don't know what tomorrow will be, but I know this. Whatever voice I find again, it won't be for them. It won't be to prove anything. It will be mine. And one day, they'll hear it everywhere. Even if they don't know it's me. Hahe watching city lights flicker in her window reflection, her expression unreadable. Her finger hovers over the record button, but she doesn't press it. The rain from last night hadn't stopped. It painted the city in thin silver threads, beating on windows and tracing the edges of pavement like veins. My room was dim, filled with that soft morning hush before the world wakes. But I was already awake. No alarm, no dream. Just the echo of last night, still alive in my chest. I sat at my desk, the corner still cluttered with sound files I once loved. My fingers hovered above the keyboard, ghosting over filler names that once felt like hope. Narration _ sample 1, Mav. Audition _ reading _ final. Soothing _ tone _ take 3. Each file a whisper of the version of me who had believed. I clicked one open. My voice played through the speakers, warm and smooth. Would you like me to guide you through it again? So calm, so composed. It didn't sound like someone who'd been laughed at. It didn't sound like someone who'd sat in a room full of colleagues while her voice was twisted into a joke. It didn't sound broken, but I was. Not in the way that needed fixing. Just hollowed out, like I had finally realized I'd been speaking to a room with no doors. Without hesitation, I selected everything, every folder, every file. Delete. Are you sure you want to permanently erase these items? Yes. My finger didn't even tremble. They never really heard me anyway. I stood up. The chair creaked behind me, the only protest in the room. By 8:10 a.m., I was drafting my resignation email. No dramatic subject line, no poetic closing, just a quiet, factual message. Dear HR, I am resigning from my position, effective immediately. Regards, Heyun. There was no statement of appreciation. I had given enough of myself already. I dressed plainly, a charcoal turtleneck and jeans. Nothing that drew attention, just clean lines and hidden shape, my hair in a low knot. Lip balm, not lipstick. I walked to the office under a gray sky. Each step was deliberate, not slow, but final. My bag felt strangely light. No lunchbox, no laptop charger, just a few loose items and my ID. When I entered, no one looked up. The office buzzed with early morning routine, keyboards clacking, coffee machines humming, team leads murmuring over performance sheets. Just another Friday is my last. I walked to my desk, packed my things, a notebook, a voice recorder, one ceramic mug I never actually used. Jiwon passed by with a mug of black coffee, his gaze sweeping past me like I was part of the decor. He was in navy again, tailored, polished, powerful. For a fleeting second, I wondered if he remembered what he'd done. But he didn't stop. Didn't say my name. I didn't care. I placed my employee badge on the corner of the front desk like it was just another item to return. The receptionist nodded, barely meeting my eyes. Take care, she mumbled. I offered a polite smile, but it didn't reach my eyes. It didn't have to. The elevator doors opened with a soft ding. I stepped inside, alone. As the doors closed, I watched the office floor disappear behind polished chrome. It didn't feel like leaving, it felt like waking up. Outside, the city exhaled rain. Sidewalks gleamed like polished mirrors, reflecting the colorless sky. I walked aimlessly, the sound of my boots muted on wet pavement. Cars splashed past. The scent of roasted chestnuts drifted from a street vendor, mixing with a sharp smell of concrete and drizzle. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out. The screen lit up with a notification. Playback auto resume. Sometimes it's okay to pause. My own voice. A ghost. A ripple in the storm. I stared at the screen, the small play bar sliding slowly across. I didn't press pause. I didn't stop walking. The voice faded into the hum of traffic. That was the last time I would let my own voice surprise me. Home again, no umbrella. My coat hung heavy with water. I dropped it near the door and walked barefoot across the wooden floor, rainwater trailing behind me in uneven marks. I didn't bother drying off. I lay on the couch, staring at the ceiling, not crying, not breaking, just breathing. No vengeance, no fury, just silence. Not the kind that hurts, the kind that rebuilds. The kind that comes after an earthquake when the world doesn't beg you to return. It just lets you go. That night, I didn't plan a revenge arc. I didn't imagine some dramatic confrontation. I didn't even picture Jihuan's face again. I imagined a studio, not theirs, mine. No title, no spotlight, just a room, a mic, a voice. Not recognized, just necessary. That was the difference. That was the beginning. Hei-en stands at her apartment window, watching the rain soften the edges of the city, her reflection faintly visible in the glass, her mouth parting as if about to speak. But the voice doesn't come out yet. There's a kind of silence that feels earned. Not the absence of sound, but the calm that settles after you've finally let go of something that once weighed too much. The rain had stopped hours ago, yet the streets below still shimmered beneath the sleepy pulse of streetlights. I stood by the window in my apartment, framed by reflections I barely recognized. My face looked quieter, older, or maybe just more honest. Behind me, my world had condensed to something small and spare, mattress on the floor, a chipped table stacked with teacups, and a corner booth lined with fabric scraps and foam panels peeling at the edges. It had once been a shrine to a dream, then a grave marker, now something new. I crouched beside the mic stand, fingertips grazing its base like reintroducing myself to an old friend. The pop filter, frayed and bent, still hung on. Barely. The mic hadn't moved since the last recording I never finished. I whispered into the empty space. Okay, let's try again. The first project wasn't glamorous. A receptionist friend needed phone menu recordings for a dental clinic. Clarity over charm. It paid next to nothing, but it didn't matter. I said yes. Then came a meditation app run out of a shared co-working space. Next, an onboarding module for a mid-tier real estate firm. None of it carried credits. None of them remembered my name. I sent files into folders labeled with codes and was paid in digital receipts. No meetings, no callback. But with each job, something inside me studied. I built a studio out of what I had. Blankets over curtain rods, fleece on the walls, towels under the desk to kill the echo. The mic was old, its stand creaked when I moved too quickly, but I cleaned it before every session like I was preparing it for something sacred. Because maybe it was. It listened. Nights blurred into routines. I recorded between midnight and dawn when the world outside settled. Between takes, I stared at the ceiling, wondering if I still sounded like myself, or if I had become someone new altogether. Then came an email. Subject: voice casting AI assistant. A short note from a nameless dev team. They were looking for a calm, emotionally neutral voice for a smart car prototype. Attached were a brief script and a non-disclosure agreement. There were no bios, no branding, just instructions and a flat rate. It should have felt impersonal. Yet when I opened the script, something tugged at me. Good evening. Where would you like to go? It's okay, let's try again together. Take a breath, let me guide you. There was no warmth in the way they were written. Functional lines, placeholder dialogue. But I saw something beneath it, like an abandoned instrument still capable of playing something beautiful if handled right. I signed the NDA using an alias. Hoy, Timp! It kept me at a distance, it kept the past out. The first take was serviceable, crisp, technically clean, the kind of voice one forgets the moment it stops speaking. That wasn't enough. I adjusted my posture, breathed slower, let the silence between phrases stretch like breath marks in a song. I didn't change the words, I changed how they were heard. When I said take a breath, I meant it. When I whispered, let me guide you, I imagined a stranger gripping their steering wheel, blinking back tears, alone on some rain-slicked highway. That was who I was speaking to. Not a client, not a team, a human. I recorded 3 versions of every line, but only one ever made it through. The last one, always the last one, after I stopped performing and simply told the truth. I didn't wait for feedback, they paid promptly. Quietly. Then another script arrived a week later, slightly longer, no message attached. Somewhere in the data trail, my voice was traveling further than I was. Weeks passed. The city outside my apartment moved in fast forward. Sirens, neon, distant footsteps. But in my room, time moved like breath. Evenings were sound-checked and edited, mornings passed in stillness and cooling tea. And then, something shifted. One night, riding home in a cab after a long recording session, I leaned back, head against the cold window, too tired to notice the make of the vehicle. The driver tapped the center console. A chime rang. Welcome back, a voice said. I blinked. Matters that voice. Long day, it continued, laced in perfect neutrality. It was mine. My voice. The cadence was softened, compressed, by whatever software filtered it, but it was me. Not a simulation, not a copy, mine. The driver laughed lightly, tapping the console again. My wife never says that, he muttered. I didn't respond, just smiled, watching the lights blur outside. It didn't matter that he didn't know it was me. He didn't need to. Because I was there, speaking into spaces where I once felt invisible, not through recognition, not through applause, but through presence. I had become part of something larger, even if my name was never spoken aloud. And for the first time, I understood the difference between being seen and being felt. In the dim recording booth, Ha-eun sits cross-legged, back to the wall, her eyes closed. The laptop screen in front of her glows with a calm waveform. Her voice plays back, filling the silence. Not loud, not proud, just undeniably present. I hadn't expected to hear my own voice through someone else's speakers. The first time it happened was in a taxi, the driver half asleep, mumbling at traffic, the assistant replying in a voice that almost felt too familiar. I didn't say anything. I just sat there, eyes fixed on the streetlights flashing past the window as my voice, trimmed and filtered, guided him across a rain-slicked city. It's okay, let's try again together. He grumbled something under his breath. The assistant didn't push, it never did. That's how I designed it. Soft pauses, breath-sized empathy. The voice was mine, but not. Distant, stripped of identity. An echo without a name. And somewhere else in the city, I knew someone was hearing it too. Jiwon. He hadn't changed much, still wore ambition like a second skin, still drove a midnight black sedan. He washed more than he slept. The company's latest project, an in-car assistant meant to rival top-tier voice AIs, was quietly falling apart. User feedback came in waves. Emotionless. Dead inside. Worse than arguing with my ex. One investor called it cold software in a luxury coffin. Jiwon didn't flinch. He rarely did, but his jaw tightened more in meetings now. He started pacing during briefings, his words became clipped like he was holding back a storm. And then, one afternoon, a junior developer slid a bland memo across the table. New emotional voice overlay package sourced, integrated from third-party licensed data, deployment queued. He didn't read the name, he just waved it forward. Fine, push it live. Within 72 hours, the reviews changed. It's weird, like it knows when I'm anxious. The voice is gentle, like someone's actually there with me. She sounds like a friend. I breathe easier when she speaks. Ji-hwan furrowed his brow, rereading the feedback as if the words were in a language he used to know but had forgotten how to speak. It wasn't his code that changed. It was something else. Something softer. Late one night, restless, he took the sedan out for a spin. Empty streets stretched ahead, blank roads framed by neon smears. The assistant's voice chimed on, polite and calm. Route initialized. Estimated arrival 27 minutes. Ji-won didn't respond. He just drove. The city blurred past, familiar turns, glowing intersections. Then, somewhere near the overpass, as if reading the wear in his breath, the assistant said, "You've been working hard, remember to rest?" His hands tightened on the wheel. The voice wasn't dramatic, it didn't linger, just present, steady, measured, like it knew. He cleared his throat. "Repeat that?" "No further commands registered," the assistant replied, still gentle. He let out a breath. Maybe the developers had gotten lucky. Or maybe he was just imagining the shape of that sentence, how it landed, how it felt like someone once said it to him and meant it. A week later, he was parked outside the company's building, watching the drizzle paint halos over the headlights. The assistant hadn't spoken in 10 minutes. Not until he leaned back in his seat and rubbed his temple. Then, "It's okay to pause when you're not being heard." His head snapped up. The rain seemed to go silent. Even the soft hum of the engine faded into background static. That line, that exact phrase, "It's okay to pause when you're not being heard." Where had he heard that before? He gripped the steering wheel. The leather felt colder now. He rewound the system, played it again. Same tone, same softness, same eerie, steady grace. He sat in stillness as the voice repeated itself. And suddenly he saw it. A flash of a memory too quick to hold, a dinner table, a voice note, laughter. "Huh. Here." I didn't know, not yet, that he was listening. I sat in the quiet cabin of a car parked in the same district where I used to take the subway to work. Ji-won was hearing my voice replay like an echo he hadn't earned. But something shifted that night. I felt it like an ache in the chest right before a storm breaks. In my apartment, I sat on the edge of my bed, brushing old lint from the sleeves of a studio hoodie. My laptop was still open, waveform paused mid-sentence. Outside, the wind rattled the balcony railing. I looked toward my mic setup, and for a moment, it almost felt like it was looking back. Not everyone needs to know where a voice comes from to feel its weight. But I did wonder, what if he knew? What would he say if he realized? Would he laugh again? Would he finally hear it? Ji-won replaying the assistant's line in a silent, dark cabin. His reflection in the windshield warped by rain. Brows furrowed, lips parted as if to ask a question he's not ready to answer. The car was still. The engine had long since shut off, but Ji-hwan hadn't moved. He sat there, spine rigid against leather, the faint blue glow of the console screen casting shadows across his face. Rain clung to the windshield, a trembling veil that blurred the outside world. And yet, it wasn't the rain that unsettled him. It was the voice. Her voice. "It's okay to pause when you're not being heard." Again. Again. Each time it replayed, it hollowed something deeper in him. That line didn't come from a generic database. That line didn't belong to some nameless contractor. He knew that cadence, that softness, that tiny lift at the end of the phrase like an offering wrapped in breath. He'd heard it once before, barely listened really, but now it echoed like a bell he should have never silenced. No, that can't be. The air inside the car suddenly felt too tight. He shoved the door open and stepped into the cold night, barely noticing the wind slicing across his cheeks. His shoes slapped against the wet pavement as he moved toward the office building. A few late lights still flickered in the upper floors. The security guard nodded at him as he passed through the lobby, but Ji-hwan didn't return it. He didn't even slow down. By the time he reached his office, his breath was ragged. He locked the door behind him. The screen came alive with a flick of his wrist. His desktop pulsed open, and he pulled up the licensing files from the voice assistant database. He narrowed his eyes, scrolling past line after line of neutral metadata. No names, just codes, sample numbers, compressed archives. Jiwon clicked it. The voice played through his office speakers. It was her. Even softened by processing, her tone wrapped around the sentence like it had nowhere else to go, like it had been waiting to be heard the right way. He froze. A sound, not fear, not confusion, but memory, crawled up the back of his throat. Suddenly, he was no longer sitting in a leather chair surrounded by glass and steel. He was back at the company dinner table. The clinking of silverware, the dim laugh of champagne-soaked egos, the voice note, the way her words had filled the space, gentle, vulnerable, and the way he had made them into a joke. Tell me that's not the saddest GPS you've ever heard. He flinched. Actually flinched. His hand moved before he could think. He opened the archived messages on his phone. The old files. The ones he never deleted because some part of him liked having proof of his control. Hun_final M4A. He hadn't listened to it since the night he humiliated her. Maybe he thought keeping it was enough? A trophy of her soft voice submission? Or maybe he had always known it would come back. He clicked play. Sometimes it's okay to pause when someone's trying to be heard. Same voice, same cadence, same breath between pause and when. His throat constricted. Not panic, not fear. Shame. He leaned back, the chair creaking under his weight as he stared at the ceiling, jaw clenched. He had spent months rebuilding the company's reputation around an AI assistant, the world now described as reassuring, empathetic, like someone who gets it. And it had all been her. The girl he silenced. The voice he ridiculed. You don't get to build success from the same echo you crushed. His eyes dropped to the screen again, her waveform still blinking. She sent me this, she sent it to me because she believed I'd listen. And I laughed. He scrubbed back to the beginning and played it again, not for verification, but because this time he needed to hear her. The office was quiet. His usual music wasn't playing. No notification pings, no clatter of keys or shuffling of papers. Only her voice filled the space. And for the first time, it didn't sound like a tool. It sounded like someone he should have protected. He leaned forward, elbows on the desk, eyes stinging with a truth too bitter to deny. She didn't need revenge. She became essential. She didn't scream for validation, she just left. And now her voice echoed across the world, guiding strangers home, softening their panic, weaving calm into machines. Uncredited, unseen, but undeniable. Jiwon exhaled slowly, a long, tremoring breath, the kind you only take when something sacred has shattered. He reached for the mouse again, clicked play. One more time. And this time, he didn't interrupt. He didn't analyze. He didn't try to fix or format or filter. He just listened. Jiwon, in his darkened office, slouched forward, staring at the waveform of Ha-eun's voice glowing across 3 monitors, his silhouette small against the light, framed by glass and silence. The world didn't change all at once. There is no headline, no moment where someone screamed my name into a crowd, no grand unveiling with applause echoing into my bones. It was quieter than that. It started with a soft ping, then another, then dozens of reviews, reactions, reposts, videos of people whispering, "Wow, the voice in my car just told me I'm doing great." I sat in the corner of a dim studio, tucked behind layered foam and walls painted in muted beige. My laptop screen flickered as the product launch livestream began. Jiwon, standing on a glossy black stage with a curved monitor behind him, the company logo pulsing blue. He looked tired. No, not tired, humbled. His suit fit the same, but something about the way he held his hands behind his back felt smaller, measured, careful. Today, he began, we're launching something different. He talked about connection, emotion, interface redesign. Not once did he say her. Not once did he say ha'un. I didn't expect him to. I didn't want him to. My studio light buzzed faintly overhead. A cup of tea had gone cold beside me, untouched. The waveform screen was minimized. I hadn't recorded anything new in days. And yet, my voice was already everywhere. Cars in Seoul, taxis in Singapore, electric dashboards in Amsterdam, GPS prompts in English, Korean, French, my words carefully translated, my pauses algorithmically preserved. I didn't need to be there, because my voice already was. And they were listening now. The press conference shifted into Q&A. Someone stood, a woman in a tan blazer, holding her mic like it held secrets. "Who's the voice behind the assistant?" she asked. "The update feels personal. Was it recorded in-house?" Ji-hwan paused. Not a flicker, not a blink, just stillness. The kind that only happens when you're on the edge of a confession. "I'm sure she'd rather remain anonymous," he said at first. His voice was smooth, controlled. Then he stopped himself, looked out into the sea of raised hands and flickering camera lights. And she was someone we didn't value until her voice became the one we couldn't function without. A beat of silence followed. No gasps, no applause, just a pause. And in that pause was everything. I closed the laptop. Not abruptly, not with some dramatic snap, just gently, like finishing a chapter. Outside, the city pulsed with life. Neon buzzed in distant windows, motorbikes weaved through traffic, the usual fog hung low against apartment rooftops. I stepped away from the desk, barefoot against cold linoleum, and walked to the window. Someone out there was being guided by my voice, not because they knew me, not because I was famous, but because I mattered. Not to the world, but to the moment they needed comfort. I didn't feel vindicated. I didn't feel victorious. I just felt real, rooted. A man across the street leaned into his steering wheel, eyes closed for just a second too long before restarting his engine. A child, silhouetted by the soft glow of a backseat screen, tapped the console and whispered, "Say it again." The assistant replied, in my voice, "You're doing great." I thought of Ji-hwan again. How he used to wave past my suggestions like they were gnats. How he turned my tone into a punchline. How he'd looked right through me like presence didn't mean participation. And yet now, every product he led, every market he entered, carried me with it. Without seeing me. Without naming me. But never again without hearing me. Later that night, I opened a blank script document. Not for them, but for a contract. Just for me. A single line typed at the top. "This is Ha-hun, I'm still here. I didn't record it. I didn't need to. Not yet." Ha-un closing the laptop, her reflection framed in the window beside the glowing city, just as the assistant's voice echoes from a passing taxi outside, one final line. "You're not lost. You're on your way." The studio was different now. It smelled of clean wood and lavender, not dusty cables and microwaved instant rice. The soundproofing panels were sleek, geometric art across the walls. Sound and silence made beautiful. I never thought I'd have a space like this. Not for recognition, but because I built it. Slowly, quietly, like everything else. Outside the glass, the city leaned into twilight. Inside, a girl sat across from me. Maybe 19, maybe 20, her voice as fragile as her hands were fidgety. I can't get the tone right," she whispered, eyes flicking toward the mic like it might bite her. Her script trembled between her fingers. I smiled. Not wide, not performative. Just enough to make her chest rise like she'd let herself breathe. "That's okay," I said gently. "Then don't try to sound perfect." She blanked. I leaned forward slightly, lowering my voice, like passing a secret between us. "Speak like you're helping someone lost in a storm." She looked at me, not like a teacher, not even like a mentor, but like someone who saw her. Her shoulders softened. She read the line again. It wasn't flawless, but it was real. The others had already left for the day. I could hear their laughter trailing down the hallway, light and careless, the kind of laughter I used to watch from the shadows of my old office. I used to wonder what it felt like to leave somewhere knowing you were heard. Now I didn't have to wonder. The girl packed up, thanked me in a hushed voice, and disappeared into the corridor. I waited for the outer door to click shut. Silence settled like a warm coat around my shoulders. I stood up, walked over to the console, and adjusted the mic arm until it tilted toward me like an old friend. The room didn't ask anything of me. No spotlight, no audience, just space. And my fingers hovered over the button. I closed my eyes, breathed in, clicked record. "This is Hahun," I said, letting every syllable rest on breath and memory. "Ready to guide you home." The waveform curled across the screen, soft and steady. I didn't speak again. Didn't need to. That one line carried every lesson, every bruise, every refusal that taught me how to be. I used to think success meant being seen. Now I knew better. Legacy isn't about visibility, it's about the echoes we leave behind in others. When I was younger, I thought the world owed me recognition, a seat at the table, a name on the door, proof that I mattered. But I don't need my name chiseled into anything now, because my voice is in the things people hold close. A car ride home after a hard day, a voice telling someone they're not lost, even when they feel like it. I became part of the system, not by forcing it open, but by becoming the part it couldn't do without. And Jihuan? I hadn't heard from him. I didn't expect to. But I saw his face in interviews sometimes. Older now, less sure, a hint of softness in his gaze when people mentioned the voice. He never said my name. And that was fine. I didn't need to. Because every time he demoed the product, every time someone smiled in relief during a late-night drive, I was there. I clicked save, labeled the file H_legacy_1 at, then I stood. The studio light above me dimmed to a soft golden hue, sensing the end of the session. My shadow stretched long across the floor as I turned off the main console and walked toward the glass wall. The city looked the same as it did all those years ago, chaotic, alive, indifferent. But I wasn't the same. I had found my rhythm, not to be loud, but to be lasting. There would be no applause, no trending hashtags, just a voice, anchored, warm, unforgettable, woven into daily moments, unseen, unshakable. Fine. As walking out of the studio, her reflection layered behind the glass, city lights catching in her eyes. The last frame lingers on the console screen, still glowing with the file name. Ha-un didn't fight for attention. She reclaimed her space by becoming unignorable. Her power didn't come from revenge, it came from growth. If you've ever risen from silence or found your strength after being dismissed, hit like and subscribe for more stories that honor quiet strength and real transformation. Comment below, when did you realize your voice mattered? You don't need recognition to be powerful, you just need to stop waiting for permission.